Now to Bangladesh, which has been going through political upheaval. In the weeks since Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina resigned and fled to India, her supporters, including those among the Hindu minority, have faced retaliatory attacks. Hindus in Bangladesh have faced violence during previous political change, but some citizens are taking it upon themselves to try and protect Hindu homes and temples.
This burned-down home belongs to 65-year-old Arobinda Mohaldar. Mohaldar is part of the Hindu minority of Bangladesh. He's a supporter of the former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Just days after Hasina fled the country, an angry mob stormed his residence. Anticipating the attack, he and his family had already fled to safety.
I'm very scared. When you've accumulated so much stuff and created a home, when somebody burns it down, you don't want to go back there. But I still want to go back to my house because I've lived there for so long. But the goons and the looting they've carried out has made me afraid.
These attacks have instilled fear amongst some people in the Hindu community that comprises about 8% of Bangladesh's 170 million people. The interim government says it's clear. Politics rather than religion is behind some of these attacks.
Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, Christians, and tribal people live here in Bangladesh together. The incidents are motivated by politics, not religion. But those responsible must be brought to justice. And we have this message to minority communities. Be assured that the people of Bangladesh, the government of Bangladesh, will stand by you.
But that hasn't prevented the spread of fake and misleading information online, where far-right influencers have shared false videos exaggerating the violence. It has also created panic among some Hindus in Bangladesh. Many students and even locals have stepped in to provide security for Hindu neighborhoods. Here, at the Dhakeshwari temple in Dhaka, prayer services continue, with students on guard day and night.
I know that there are some problems happens. There are some temple burned, and there are some houses, minority houses have been affected as well. But in that case, I will say definitely if the majority will not come forward to protect the minorities, then the problem and the amount of the burning house or temple, the affected people will be very, very much growing.
The interim government has pledged to protect Hindus. That and the growing number of ordinary people coming to their defense is helping ensure vulnerable Hindu communities remain safe.
And for more on this story, I'm joined now in the studio by my colleague Noami, Conrad from DW's investigative team. Welcome, Naomi. So we just heard in that report that false information is circulating in connection with these attacks on Hindu minorities in Bangladesh. Tell us more about how that's happening.
Right. I mean, just to be clear, there have been attacks on Hindus. A lot of them, however, were members or supporters of the Awami League. So it's really difficult to say were these religiously motivated attacks or what the government is saying, politically motivated attacks. But what we're seeing on social media is really, it seems, a targeted campaign pushing this narrative of communal violence. There's a lot of misinformation, which has been debunked by Bangladeshi and other outlets. And what we also see is that a lot of these social media accounts pushing this are actually, it seems, based in India. So a lot of it is coming from India and is being picked up by others, including mainstream media in India.
Why is that? Why is it coming from India?
Well, India has long been a staunch supporter of our ex-Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, who always portrayed herself as the defender of the secular Bangladesh. And it has to be said, she was extremely good, or her government was extrememely good at clamping down on Islamist violence in a very brutal way, as we've reported in the past. So a lot of people disappeared. There were lots of extrajudicial killings, but it brought down the Islamist attacks. And also internationally, she was very good at portraying herself as this defender of the secular Bangladesh, even though in Bangladesh there's been some opposition to the very Hindu nationalist policies under Narendra Modi. But India has clearly lost their main ally in Bangladesh, and that could be driving it. As well as in the past, there has been communal violence, so it's not completely out of the realm to say that things might still happen, violence might still escalate.
So it's definitely an uncertain situation at the moment in Bangladesh, isn't it? We're hearing that the police are going back to work now. They were on strike. Tell us about how the current interim government is going to try to restore security in the country.
I mean, this is one of the main challenges, together with the economy and accountability for what has happened in the last couple of weeks and the months and years before. The judicial system is completely bogged down. The traffic police has slowly come back after reprisal attacks on security forces. Regular police is slowly coming back, but isn't entirely back yet. So there's a big vacuum of security and judicial accountability at the moment. These are huge tasks that the government faces and has to deal with quite quickly, so that people don't get frustrated and anger may yet again spill out onto the streets.
Noami Conrad from DW's investigative team. Thank you so much, Noami.
DW reporter Zobaer Ahmed is in Dhaka covering this story. Zobaer, our report gave us a sense of the fear and anger that's been unleashed in Bangladesh. What would you say is driving it? Is it more religious or political in nature?
So, this is not 100% clear what exactly were the reasons of the recent attacks, what we have witnessed. I'm talking about all the attacks. That might come out soon. However, this is a kind of a layered situation, what I would rather say. In Bangladesh, attacks on the Hindus or other minorities are not new and often a combination of political and personal benefits using communal sentiments. It could be benefiting in the national politics by all the parties under every regime. It could be local enmity. It could be personal goals. It could be like taking properties by creating a sense of fear. We also have seen purely communal attacks as well on them. And especially the organizations that work for the rights of the minorities here, they said that they have observed attacks on the religious minorities during regime changes, especially. So this is the situation. It's what I've said, that this is a very layered situation, combining all the factors.
Now, Bangladesh's interim government is promising to bring to justice those responsible for violence. They're also talking about implementing political reforms. How difficult do you think it'll be to do all that?
Of course, this is an extraordinary situation. As you know, that in July there was this mass uprising led by the students that resulted in the fall of the previous government, and it was in the first week of August, and then just more than a week earlier, the new government, this interim government, have taken oath. So we have heard the advisors commenting on the issue. We all, in the report, you have also seen that one of the advisors, the student advisor, he talked about the issue. So we know that there will be investigations and there will be more investigations will be taken place. What we have seen, this government is trying to settling down. We have seen police already going back to their posts, but still they are not full-fledged. Their full-fledged operation is not there. Some organizations that I was talking about, they are trying to put together all the incidents that have taken place, and maybe after that you will get a full picture by the end of this week. And about the reform, there are talks. We haven't heard specifically from the government what kind of reforms they are trying to pursue, but what we know, there are discussions in different forums about those political reforms, like the decentralization of the power structure, keeping the state institutions, including police department, out of political influence, so that they're trying to reform those kind of things that we listen, and the civil society, they are also suggesting something like that.
Zobaer, thank you very much. That was DW reporter Zobaer Ahmed in Dhaka.
All right, for more now, I'm joined by Noami Hossain. She's a professor at the School of Oriental and African Studies at the University of London. Professor, it's good to have you with us. Is there a security crisis in Bangladesh following the collapse of Sheikh Hasina's government?
Well, thanks for following the story, continuing to follow this story. I would say that the security situation is probably very fragile, but it's not, I wouldn't say, as bad as it was a week or 10 days ago. It's a lot calmer now. It seems to be improving all the time. The police have returned to their posts to some extent. The army is standing ready. But also the broader society came out to really police the streets, to patrol when there were concerns about robbery and a general breakdown of law and order. So I think that, to that extent, the security situation remains fragile, but not in crisis mode. There were, I think this is really important to mention, there were fears of mass attacks against minorities, and there have been credible reports of at least 200 of such attacks. But also, I think it's very important to be very careful here. There has been also a massive campaign of disinformation coming largely, I think, from right-wing Hindu accounts and organizations. And this makes it very difficult to understand actually the extent of what has been going on in Bangladesh. It seems a lot of these attacks have been against Awami League supporters. That does not make it right, doesn't make it good, but it does mean that it is not a religiously motivated campaign of attacks, it seems. That a lot of these claims have been thoroughly debunked and repeatedly debunked, I should say, by very credible fact-checking groups, BBC, AFP, Al Jazeera, and various other groups that are fighting disinformation. There was an extended piece in The Diplomat last week by Farhana Sultana, which summarized all of this. So, yes, it's fragile, but not, I'd say, crisis.
Let me ask you then about the police. The police forces, are they fatally compromised? I mean, does the force need maybe to be rebuilt from scratch? I mean, if we're talking about possible attacks or minorities being targeted, you know, we're getting reports that minority groups, religious groups say that promises by security forces, by the police to protect them are not being kept.
Well, the day after Sheikh Hasina resigned, there were attacks on police stations around the city, around the country. We think now the number of dead policemen after this reprisal attacks, and including the protest movement, is 44. So the police are very, very frightened for good reason. And they have been seen for many, many years now as the enforcers of Sheikh Hasina's regime. So it's understandable, I think, that they were an object, they were a target of these reprisal attacks. So I think there's a real problem here, which is that the vast majority of the rank and file of the police were actually recruited under Sheikh Hasina's rule, which makes it very difficult to reform the police without wholesale reform. There was an effort to give them new uniforms and badges and logos and so on, which I think was quite rightly derided as very unlikely to make much difference. Yeah. I think it's a real priority. It's not quite clear yet how that's going to be achieved. It's one of the many huge challenges that Professor Yunus is facing right now.
Yeah, I want to ask you about Professor Yunus. You know, it's been about 2 weeks since he was sworn in, returning to Bangladesh from Paris. Give us a sense of just the challenges, you know, that he is facing. I mean, you know, how would you describe the political situation that he found when he landed?
I mean, the political situation is probably the biggest challenge. We have, of course, an Awami League, which is thoroughly now rejected, really, by a majority of the people. There's no doubt about that. But also a kind of weak opposition. The Bangladesh Nationalist Party, the main opposition, has itself been, you know, under so much pressure, has been arrested and jailed in their thousands, been in exile. The leader of the BNP was under house arrest, is very ill and quite elderly. So it's not clear, really, that there is a strong opposition either. The student movement is turning out to be quite a force, actually, thoughtful, quite well organised, trying to be supportive of this interim government very much so. Whether they will turn themselves into an active political party or not, I think is yet unknown. But I think many young people think that they should. There's a strong sense, I think, in Bangladesh that neither of the two main parties have really done a great deal of good for Bangladesh, and actually alternatives are wanted.
Professor Noami,
Other challenges, though?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just say about
quickly? Yeah, go ahead.
Bangladesh is now facing huge floods. It's a terrible situation. Over 1 million people are stranded or in trouble because of these floods. And there's a refugee crisis brewing in the southeast corner. There's an economic crisis as well. So we have a lot. Professor Yunus has a lot to deal with. Yeah. So he needs everyone's goodwill. We should all support him.
Professor Noami Hossain, as always, good talking with you. We appreciate your valuable analysis of this situation. Thank you.
Thank you.